Kathy had always been fascinated by old houses, so when she inherited her grandmother's Victorian home, she was thrilled. The house, located on the outskirts of a small town, had been empty for years, and the locals spoke of it with a mix of reverence and fear. They whispered about strange noises, flickering lights, and the eerie feeling that someone was always watching. Determined to make the house her own, Kathy moved in and began renovations. As she cleaned and restored the rooms, she felt a presence, like the house was alive and observing her. The sensation was strongest in the attic, where she found an old trunk filled with her grandmother's belongings. Among the keepsakes was a dusty journal. Curious, Kathy began to read. The journal detailed her grandmother's life, but as she read further, it took a darker turn. Her grandmother wrote about a spirit that haunted the house, a restless entity that had latched onto her. She described hearing whispers at night, seeing shadows move, and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. The more Kathy read, the more she noticed strange occurrences herself. Doors would creak open, lights would flicker, and she sometimes felt a cold touch on her shoulder. One night, as she was reading in bed, she heard a whisper, "Get out." Startled, she looked around but saw no one. The whispers grew more frequent, always urging her to leave. Despite her growing unease, Kathy was determined not to be scared off. She decided to confront the spirit. Late one night, she stood in the attic, holding a candle and calling out to the entity. She demanded to know what it wanted. Suddenly, the candle extinguished, and she felt a cold breath on her neck. "Leave," a voice whispered in her ear. Terrified, Kathy stumbled back, but as she turned to leave the attic, she tripped over the old trunk and fell. The journal fell open beside her, revealing the final, chilling entry. It wasn't a ghost that haunted the house. It was a curse placed by her grandmother to protect her from a malevolent spirit that had been following their family for generations. But the twist came as Kathy realized the truth. The voice she had heard, the one she thought was a ghost, was actually her grandmother's spirit trying to protect her. The true entity wasn't in the house. It was following Kathy herself. Her grandmother had warned her, but it was too late. As Kathy looked around, the shadows in the room seemed to close in, and the temperature dropped. The real threat had been with her all along, waiting for the right moment to strike. In that moment of realization, Kathy understood that she couldn't escape the curse, and the house, once a refuge, had become her prison. The last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her was her grandmother's reflection in the attic window, mouthing the words, "I'm sorry."